Well, guys, 305 takes us back during NBA Finals. We couldn't upload on Friday because we had a couple of stuff going on, both me and Myles, but we're back now. We have a tied series at 1-1, and we could always talk about that stuff like later on day and time, but we're going into Miami now. The series is back in Miami. We didn't get to have a chance because it was in 2020, the bubble, couldn't have any home games. So now we have a home finals game essentially since 2014. And as much as we love to go, Myles, I don't even think we could afford tickets, but we could get started on NBA Finals game 3 and 4, man. And the biggest question for all Heat fans, and I think we could agree, like, should Tyler Hero play?
So it's going to be a tough question, and I think Game Three is really his shot to make an impact on this series because all the reports going into Game Two or before really Game One was that the Heat and him were targeting Game Two as a possible comeback. Obviously, Game Two has now passed, and we didn't get a Tyler Hero sighting. He wasn't even active for the game, and you would have to think coming back home after stealing Game Two in Denver, him being able to check in at the scorers table, get the huge standing ovation from the crowd, like that would be the moment, right? And that's like where you reintroduce him into the series. But for me personally, I know it's going to be tough, and I understand what he means for the team, and that you invested in him going into this season, and he was the sixth man of the year last year, so it's not like it's not an impactful player. And we've seen even Game Two, the game they won this series, there was a stretch where they couldn't produce on offense, so you can't say like, oh, I don't see how Tyler fits in. My question is whose minutes is he taking? And that's just where I come down to the answer where I think Spo would have to sit down with Tyler and say, listen, like, unfortunately, just with the circumstances and when you got injured, like other guys have stepped up, we've now filled those minutes. It's not like you're not going to be in our long-term plans. It's just right now I have 3 more wins I'm trying to get. And unfortunately, I don't see you in the plans for those 3 victories. And it's crazy to say, but when you have Duncan Robinson stepping up, not only Game Two where he went crazy in the fourth quarter, but he stepped up against Boston
Mm-hmm.
multiple times. Caleb Martin had a 28-point game in the closeout victory in Boston on the road.
And he's
Gabe
been a
Vince,
good decoy so far in the series. He hasn't taken that many shots, but he's been very good as a decoy. And then you have Gabe Vincent,
yeah,
who's been outside of Bam the best scorer in the finals for the Heat.
yeah, and he's been consistent the whole way through. Has the chops to lead the team as a lead ball handler. So I mean, for me, I would personally like if it comes down to it, I would personally like Hero to take Lowry's minutes, but I think you're getting weaker on defense if you do that. And for as frustrating as Lowry can be, he's been big in big moments so far throughout this series. He was great in the fourth quarter of Game Two. So I don't see Spoelstra doing that. I don't think he'll decrease Lowry's minutes, especially not in the final. So unfortunately for Tyler, I just think that it's a little bit too late. If he could have come back maybe last round, and it's not that I wouldn't want him in this series. It's just I don't want to mess with the mojo of the team, especially considering the fact that we just went into Denver and sold.
Yeah. And it's gonna be tough. I'm on the same page. I don't want to mess up the flow we have because with the way the team has been playing, they've been playing really good basketball. There's a lot of ball movement. We're getting open shots, which is like at the end of the possession, you want that. You want to have someone at least have an open shot. And with Tyler, I do understand he can create his own shot, but we also have to know he's coming off of a broken hand injury, hand injury. So I don't know how good he's actually going to be dribbling the ball in his hand. Could he actually produce his own shot like if he was before the injury? So I just don't know. And if you want to bring him in just for like minutes to give someone a rest, I have no issue with that. But it will be whose minutes will you take? I mean, with the way Jimmy's been hobbling, do you say, hey, Jimmy, maybe now you could get like 7 more minutes of rest with Tyler out there? But Jimmy's been a ball handler. He's been really good on defense if he hasn't had the offense shown up. So It's gonna be tough. I mean, maybe you could switch him out with Martin. Maybe give Martin a couple of minutes, like of extra rest every now and then. But then we could also say you have Highsmith, who's been who's been really solid so far throughout these playoffs. Every time Highsmith has come in, he's produced. If it's not on the offensive end, on the defensive end, he takes some of the tougher assignments, and he does a good job guarding. We've never had an issue with Highsmith in terms as a defender. It's just his offense, but I just don't know where Tyler's gonna fit in. I really don't know. And but I mean, I do trust Spoelstra. If Spoelstra does bring him in, I think it'll be more just for momentum boost and to
Yeah, I think it
to
would just be
tell
to keep the
Denver,
offense keep going. My
yeah,
my only question is, okay, like if you get the reward on offense, any minutes that he's on the floor at the same time as Jokic, that's just another defender for Jokic to
target,
attack, whether
yeah,
it's on back cuts, whether it's straight up plain pick and roll because Jokic can has the
or
ability as a
Murray,
ball handler. Yeah, exactly. So I think it's gonna be a target on the back of Tyler here on the defensive end, and we'll see. My biggest thing is I understand he could probably still be in condition, but what is the rust going to be like?
yep,
Because it was his shooting hand, so it wasn't like he was putting up shots the entire time. So it's definitely an interesting decision. I mean, I don't think Spoelstra's really made any poor decisions really this entire playoff run. I know people are criticizing him for maybe not giving going game one with Kevin Love in the starting lineup, especially after they saw the results of how that went with him in the starting lineup at game two. But I have complete trust in Spoelstra, and you know, even with how this series has gone so far, I don't think that there's any need for drastic changes. You had a really bad shooting game in game one, and then you came out and shot over 40% in game two. So the offense I think is still creating quality shots, and I really think that Miami has a really solid chance of now winning the series. I think the momentum
yeah.
is all in their favor. Three of the five remaining games are going to be at home for Miami. So, if they can just take care of business at home, they don't have anything to worry about.
Nope. So that's what I really think. I think if Spoelstra does bring him in, it's going to be strictly for like, all right, we might be losing momentum a bit. Let's bring in Tyler in the game. The crowd will really get into it. The players will get into it, and maybe that gives them that second boost of energy to maybe stop Denver on any momentum run that they might be getting. But then, like you said, if he's on defense, if I'm anyone on the Nuggets, that's who I'm going to target because I have no idea how rusty he might be. Aaron Gordon might even try to get a couple of possessions on him. Michael Porter Jr., Bruce Brown. I mean, almost everyone will probably attack him or Duncan, depending on who's on the floor. And then if both of them on the floor, you do have to worry about your defense. But I mean, we got to see. We do trust Spo. He's done a great job this whole postseason as a coach. He's made a lot of good decisions. I think he's maybe had maybe one or two bad decisions or questionable decisions, if you want to say. Outside of that, I think he's done a good job. But man, it's still kind of surreal, bro, that we took game two and then in game one, I texted it to a bunch of people. I was like, if Max Strus just hit like half of his shots in game one, we at least make it a close game, closer than what it seemed. But now we're gonna go into game three, and I'm really curious to see if he's gonna keep Kevin Love in the starting lineup.
Oh, you have to. You
And
have
if
to.
he does give him more minutes, because bro, when Zeller was on the floor, I
Yeah, Zeller,
that was a
Zeller's
disaster.
Zeller's been really tough this series, especially going up against Jokic. It looks like Jokic is, just seeing, you know, food out there. Like he's literally eating the guy up. But it is funny that Zeller scores 4 point in game two and the Heat win by three. So I do find that funny. But I think you have to continue with Kevin Love in the starting lineup. The
Have
Heat
to.
starting lineup outscored the Nuggets by 20 points in 21 minutes that they played against each other. Um, and I mean, they look at the way they started the game. They got off to a 10-2 start in the first quarter, and then scored 13 points on the first five possessions in the third. Like that's with your starting lineup, and Love was I think big against Gordon. I for
Yeah.
some reason I thought Gordon played a really bad game, and he just wasn't able to get around Kevin Love, which I was not expecting. and Kevin
You
Love could
figured
grab.
with him being athletic as he is, it wouldn't be a problem, but
Yeah, with just the speed, but I mean, Love stonewalled him a couple of times. He was, I thought, huge on the help side a couple of times, just throwing his body around. He got that charge early in the game too, and then when he gets the rebounds, he's always looking for that long outlet pass too. So I think that helps get the Heat, kind of moving in motion with their offense because it seems clearly. I don't know if they'll switch it up heading into game 3 and 4 now that the series is back in Miami, but it seems like Denver has no problem with Bam continuing to get his own on offense because
yeah,
that's been really the bread and butter for the Heat throughout this series, and hopefully it can continue whether it's with Bam scoring or setting up his teammates. We saw that them go to that over and over and over again in the fourth quarter, and you saw the results with Duncan Robinson being able to cut off Bam, use him as a screener, get his
that
shot
two-man
off.
game of Bam and Duncan is still strong as it is.
Yeah, and I think it's incredible basketball that we're seeing right now in this series. You saw just that last possession, that last couple of seconds in game two, where the Heat try, they give the ball to Bam in space, they run some cuts off him, nothing works. They go back to Jimmy, run a Bam and Jimmy pick and roll. I thought that they used Jokic a lot more in the pick and roll game than we had seen in game one. I think they're going to continue to do that just to try to get him to move as much as possible on defense. Hopefully, try to wear him out or get him in foul trouble. And then, in game two, Jimmy takes the three off the pick. It was a good shot. He had Jokic on him. They got the switch that they wanted. Unfortunately, it doesn't go. I honestly thought, because going into that possession, you're up three. There's no more shot clock left. I thought the Heat might have fouled because just
Yeah,
to get him on the free throw line, and the worst that they
and
can do
yeah,
is make it a
prevent
1 point
any
game.
shot from three.
Yeah, but then, and I honestly thought when Jimmy reached in at Jamal at the top of the key for before he put up that shot, I thought, okay, that was him trying to get for a foul call, but he actually kind of poked the ball, started their play going backwards a little bit, and then that shot that Murray put up,
It
honestly,
was a good look.
I thought it was good off his hands, and like even on the replays, like that's a great shot. It just unfortunately didn't go in, and it's not like it's not a shot we haven't seen him make. So I just think we're getting phenomenal basketball right now from both of these teams.
Yeah. And I think our last question that we could put, it's just a probably general question a lot of people have been asking. And some people are saying yes, but I also feel like this could be a question answer where I think some people could say no. Do we need like legit playoff Jimmy who gets like 40 to win this series?
I say yes. I don't think we need him to win, all three of the remaining games that is left to get
Yeah.
a crown of champion. But I do think he's going to have to show himself at some point in the series, whether it's these next two at home or if you have a league coming back home for game six. I think he has to show up, and hopefully we can get the Jimmy from the Milwaukee series where either he goes for a crazy amount of points or he can turn it on in the fourth quarter like we saw in that game five and just kind of just will his team to victory. But I do think we need one of those, or just, I mean, I know it's going to be hard because they're not the same teams in the way that they run their offense, but even when he was getting 6 7 steals against Boston last round, I think a performance like that would go a long way because right now with just the way both teams are playing and just
Turnovers are going to be key.
how high level the play of basketball is, I if you can have a game where Jimmy goes for 6 7 steals and you get just those extra possessions there, that could swing the game right there.
It does. That's where I agree with you. A lot of people are saying we're gonna need him for like the whole series to win. I feel like it just depends on the game because I do like how all the other players are playing. I do like how Gabe Vincent is playing. Gabe Vincent is fearless in the court. Bam, he has been aggressive this whole series, even though it's only been 2 games, he has been aggressive, and I like seeing that from Bam. I like how Duncan Robinson is playing. He's using a lot more tools to his game now, which actually elevates our offense on the floor. And then Kevin Love, he brings aspects to the game. So does Kyle Lowry. Almost everyone does something. So I do feel like there's going to be a game where we'll need it. Do I feel like it will be in these next 2 games? I honestly think so. I feel like either game 3 or game 4 is gonna be one of those games where our offense just comes out cold versus who knows why. And
I'm hoping not because we're back home. That's
yeah,
the
I'm
only thing. But
hoping
then,
not. It's just I don't want it to be like that game 4 when we had against Milwaukee. Offense was cold and Jimmy was just like, okay, I just have to take every shot. If not, if Jimmy can be aggressive and just draw as many fouls and get to the free throw line, who knows how many times in the game, go ahead. I feel like that would still be just as good because if you get him in foul trouble, they do have to play off more instead of being right there and trying to get the steal or forcing a turnover. I feel like that can help a lot because I I do think people should realize Jimmy, he clearly that ankle injury he suffered against the Knicks has bothered him. It's bothered him, and then because if you look at even some of the plays for against the Nuggets, there's just some plays where Jimmy he just did not elevate off the floor. Where Jimmy is usually a pretty athletic guy on the floor, and he just bro, he's not jumping. He's just standing and shooting, or he's standing and defending. So I do, I, I do feel like we should give Jimmy a little bit of credit for that because I'm like, all right, we don't know how serious his ankle injury is. Kind of like Julius Randle. You saw Julius Randle's surgery that he had to get,
yeah, he had arthroscopic surgery, so obviously his injury was a little bit more than they were letting on
and we don't know if it's the same thing for
in that
Jimmy.
series. Yeah. And I mean, and I don't even think we necessarily need like the crazy 19 of 28 against Milwaukee or 17 of 13 against Milwaukee. It's just, the one thing that you usually can count on with him is that he's going to be super efficient. But game two, he goes 7 of 19, shoots 37%. Game one, he's 6 of 14. Game seven, I know we won this against Boston, but he's 12 of 28. And, game six, he's 5 of 21. So that's the thing that's been kind of uncharacteristic from him because you kind of expect him to always be efficient, even if the shot's not falling, because he's a guy that, can get to the free throw line. But you look game two, he's 5 of 5 from the free throw line. Game one, he didn't have a single attempt. Game seven against Boston, he was 1 for 12. But then you look game five or game six against Boston, 12 of 14. So it's usually it's tied into him being efficient and he's going to be able to, get us easy points from the free throw line, but we haven't been able to see that so far, which I do think maybe tied into to the ankle. It could be just the guy might just be exhausted. I mean,
Yeah,
he
he
hasn't
could be.
played he's played 40 minutes in game two, 38 minutes in game one, then 43 and 46 the last two games against Boston. So I think it could just be a fatigue factor at this point, especially with how hard we had to ride him in that first series, and then he gets hurt in the second series, and then
We
we
also
got
have
to
to
ride
count
him
the two
again.
playing games.
Yeah, so it's been a lot of basketball for him, and especially with him having to basically be the lead alpha dog, and this is the position we wanted to get to, and he needed to be that for us to get here. But I think one last topic, which I want to know what you think about. I mean, we've seen the numbers where if Jokic has scored 40 or more points so far in this postseason, Denver is now 0-3. He scored 41 against the Heat, only had 2 assists, I believe, was the number. And I want to know what you think. Do you think, well, first off, do you think that's more on the Heat making him more of a scorer or Denver just not making shots with Michael Porter Jr. finishing with less made field goals than Cody Zeller?
I feel
Cody
like it's
Zeller having
mainly Denver
more
not
made
hitting
field
their.
goals? Or do you
It,
think that that's just kind of an aberration with the stats?
I feel like it's just Denver not hitting their shots because if people watch the game, Jokic did make a lot of good passes. He should have finished with more assists than he did in game two. It's just they didn't hit their shots. Michael Porter shot the ball really bad. Aaron Gordon, he wasn't able to get those easy layups like we said in game one. KCP, he wasn't able to get that much done on offense. The only ones who really like actually did
KCP
really
had a terrible game, offense
terrible
and
game.
defense. Two times fouling a 3-point shooter.
Yeah,
He had a terrible game.
Bruce Brown had a solid game on offense, so that I feel like those were the only people that helped him. And Jamal Murray didn't shoot the ball well either until the fourth quarter. So to me, it's more Denver just not hitting their shots because And all the games where Jokic
And Gordon
scored,
wasn't that great. I know he
yep,
made 1 3, but he was terrible considering what he looked like in game one, where he was like, oh my God, where'd this guy
yeah.
come from?
Because if everyone looks at those games where he had to score 40 and they lost, yeah, it's not that they made Jokic into a scorer. It's just the Nuggets weren't hitting their shots outside of him. Because he's one of those people. He's always most of the time going to make the right basketball play. 9 times out of 10, he is making the right basketball play for the open shooter or making an extra pass to get that open shot. He's going to do that. And if they just don't hit their shots, that just happens. Look at us in game one. How many like open 3-point attempts did Max Drews had? He had at least like 6 open threes, and he just didn't make them. And we could say the same thing for Denver happened in game two. They had open shots. It's just they didn't make it. I don't think that was the Heat's game plan. Oh, let's make Jokic into a scorer, have him not pass the ball. I don't think that was their game plan. I think their game plan was like, hey, make sure they don't score on every possession. The less chances they have at scoring, the more chances we have at winning. So to I don't think that's a stat people should look at. It's just guys didn't hit their shots. We've seen it. There's been games where the Heat simply don't make their shots, and we're like, bro, our shooting is just awful tonight, which is kind of like a representation of our regular season. But I mean, stuff like that happens. There's just nights where some guys, their shots are just not falling.
Yeah, and I'm glad you said that because the two other games that he did this prior to game two, that he scored 40 plus
Yeah,
points.
against Phoenix.
Yeah, and they were both games where Devin Booker went crazy. The first one was the game where Devin Booker went 20 of 25 for 47 points. And then the second one, Booker won 14 of 18 for 36 points. And like if you're gonna shoot that well in the playoffs, like sometimes you just have to throw your hands up. Like, okay, like
There's
you know,
nothing you can do.
yeah, especially when my best player is still giving me 40 plus points. Like, okay, I'm sorry that it didn't work out today. But yeah, like you said, and the craziest thing to me about this entire Heat playoff run is I guess they just went on an 82 game shooting slump because listen to the stats. The Heat shot 17 of 35 in game two, 48.6% from 3-point range. This was the sixth time in these playoffs that the Heat have shot at least 48.5% or better from beyond the arc. They did that just 3 times in the regular season. So they've already doubled that in the playoffs when it's supposed to get harder.
Yep.
Um,
I mean, I think I forgot who it was that said it, but we have 6 of the best 3-point shooting games in the whole playoffs out of all
and
the teams.
and it's different players every time.
Yeah.
6 of 7 players that made 1 3 in game two made at least two. Struz, who went 0 from 9 in game one, got 2 threes in the first 3 minutes of the game. The first 3 minutes of the game. And then so yeah, the Heat lead overall in all the playoff teams in 3-point percentage at 39.2. For the regular season, they were 27th. 27th. One of the 4 worst teams at shooting threes. They shot 34.4% of the regular season. That's the biggest jump ever for a team in playoff history. To go from that percentage to the top percentage is the craziest part to me. So I guess we can just say like it was an 82 game team shooting slump. Like it makes no sense. Like it's not
Or
even
the
like it was a
Heat just
small
pulled off
sample
like the
size.
best act we ever saw in NBA history. They were like, yeah, we're just going to be bad for 82 games, have people underestimate us, and then we're going to go into playoffs and then smack them all in the mouth. And I'm like, what? Because I mean,
I
we
wish I could even
did
believe
them.
that. I wish I could even believe that. Honestly. Because I know they wanted to take Brooklyn's spot. I know they wanted that fifth seat, that sixth spot.
I mean, it's definitely weird with the Heat. It's definitely weird, but
It's one of the weirdest runs ever, and now they're up 1-1, or now they're tied 1-1 in the NBA Finals with
yeah,
home court advantage now swung back into their favor.
yeah,
So, as weird and surprising as this run has been, it's even more incredible that they are only 3 victories away from being the NBA champions. I truly am at a loss for words for this team.
Man, I have more to say about it, but I'm gonna wait for it there. The last thing we're gonna do is just a question. I'm pretty sure it's a yes for you. I know it's a yes for me. Are you superstitious and do you have a pregame ritual before every game?
So it just depends on what happened the game before. I'm not too superstitious, but I do have a couple of either jerseys or t-shirts, heat shirts that I'll run through, depending on where I'm watching the game. And then my rule is if they won the previous game, whatever shirt I was wearing for that
You need
game,
to have
I
it.
repeat the shirt. If they lose, then we have to start the cycle over again. I'm wearing a completely different jersey or shirt.
Same thing with me. Like, did if I whatever happened on that day that they won, I'm like, all right, that next day they're playing, I have to repeat the same process. I have to do everything the exact same. Like, if I came home like 5 minutes before tip off, I need to show up at my house 5 minutes before tip off. Like, that's what has to happen. It's Oh man, I the things we will do for this team, and I even wear like this. There's sometimes where I was like, all right, if it worked last week, like how you said with certain heat shirts and everything, I am going to wear that.
Yeah,
I
that's always my go-to is it's usually my outfit. But I'm not too superstitious because, I'm a believer in the culture, man. The
Yeah,
culture always got me. I never doubt the culture.
we have that, but I will say the biggest like superstition I had was during our fantasy season. Every time I lost in fantasy, I shaved, and then if I won, I'm just like I'm not shaving until I lose again. I am not shaving.
I still have this is opening day
You and my
of the FTX
X
arena.
Arena
Are
before they
you
went
in
bankrupt.
Miami? FTX opening day. There's a QR code on the back that doesn't work anymore.
Yep. For anyone, if you know the FTX Arena, you know.
If you know, you know, brother. Oh, what a
And
time. Coming from having that on our court this year, from Dwayne Dedman throwing a massage gun to being 3 victories away from the NBA championship. I mean, even if it was in a movie, I wouldn't believe it. I wouldn't believe it.
yeah, honestly, I'll just be like, all right, who wrote this? Like, I like to think. Don't get me wrong, love the
It's
Heat,
too
but
far-fetched. It's
yeah,
too much to believe right now. And it's our favorite basketball team. And
we have struggled with this team.
I couldn't be happier. I hope we get both of these at home, game 3 and 4, go back to Denver. I don't even care what happens there, and then come win this back at our home court for game 6.
Man, if that happens, like the next day, I feel like me and Miles will just be a part of like other hundreds of thousands of people that will be outside the arena, just like waiting for the parade to start, probably like 2 days before.
I'm gonna go straight to the. I don't even know. I don't even know what I'm gonna do. I was gonna say I was gonna go straight to the airport and meet them, but if they're already here, I don't know where I'm gonna meet them.
I think we'll just be waiting outside the arena for the parade to start. And I don't know, people's like, they'll start in a couple of days. I need to
I
be
don't
here.
care. That's how dedicated. That's they deserve this. They deserve me waiting out here for everything that they went through.
They put us in like one of those montage of like the doubters and they go back to a couple of episodes we did. I'll just be like, you know, you guys have to give us credit. You
Duncan
didn't give us a
Robinson could
reason to
Duncan
believe.
Robinson could just have a field day with us, bro. Be like, what now? Be like,
If he called us out, I wouldn't even be mad. I'll just be like, no, you're absolutely right.
thank you for proving me wrong, man. Thank you for
Thank you.
proving me wrong in
Because
the biggest stages.
well, well, guys, that's gonna be it for us. We're gonna end it. We're gonna try to be back maybe this weekend because we know game 4 is on Friday. We might come back for a little short thing on Saturday. But if we don't, we will definitely be back on Monday because it's going to be big. Every game now is a must win. So it doesn't matter where it is, it's a must win. And once that's done, we'll get into more football. We'll talk a little bit more after all the decisions are done with the Jaw Moran suspension, the Isaiah Rogers investigation, even though he snitched on himself. But we'll definitely see. And we can't wait for you guys. We'll be back next time.